It is the Matt McNeil Show, brand new to you edition of it over the holidays. Happy holidays, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful time. There are two shows I do whenever I can that are not for anyone else that's listening. They're just for me. They are just for me. Larry Millette, whenever I can get him on, I love talking because he's one of my favorite authors, and so that show's all about me when I talk to him. And the other one is a guy I talk to as much as I can. Paul Metsa is kind enough to join us. Wall of Power Radio Hour airs on the weekends here on AM 950. We've got his Duluth show as well. He is a master musician, basically the voice of Duluth right now, as he is just giving us all sorts of great music, great content, talking about music. And he's kind enough to join us for this hour to talk about various things. Hey, Paul.
Matt, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon, whatever this is.
We're recording it. We're good. First of all, good to hear from you. I want to make sure, not only, of course, Wall of Power Radio Hour, which is, how many years have you done that show here on AM 950?
Oh, geez, we're going 10 and a half years now.
Wow, just brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant. We have Wall of Power Radio Hour, but you've also been doing a show up in Duluth that I want to also make sure I plug, because I had someone say, they listened to that show and they said, gosh, I mean, he gets Duluth so well and the Iron Range so well as far as music goes. So what is that show?
That airs on KDAL, which is 610 AM, 103.9 FM. You can stream it at KDL610.com. That airs every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon. I usually have a live musician when I can, and it's really cramped my Friday night partying style.
It hasn't stopped it. It's just cramped it, though.
I'm from the range, man. Nothing stops me.
I'll just go to the station from here. Who hasn't done that one? You, of course, are up in beautiful Duluth. I was just up there not that long ago. Love that town. The town is just, you talk about music. I'm glad you're doing a show up there about it, because I think you've talked about this before, pound for pound, Duluth's music scene is exceptional. I mean, there's a lot of towns that are bigger than Duluth that have a real crap one, and Duluth is amazing. And it's not just that, of course, it's the range as well. You know, it really is great that community, and I think it has a lot just to do with Duluth, is able to sustain the music scene that it has.
It's there's plenty of places to play. I don't play as many as I could. I do a Sunday afternoon show at Carmody's Irish Pub in downtown Duluth. I've got a new band that I started about 6 weeks ago called Paul Metsa and the Tilt Town Titans.
Nice.
And I got a couple of young cats. My freaking bass player just turned 20. My drummer's 21, and then I got a cat, great guy named George Ellsworth, who plays keyboards and sings, who's I think George just turned 49. But yeah, so I'm doing that. But it's an incredible music scene. It's always had a good music scene. I interviewed on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. Brett, our engineer Brett, might remember with this band Story Hill. You probably know those guys. They kind of came. I think they were originally Chris and Johnny, and then they became Story Hill. They both live in Bozeman, Montana, and we were talking about Duluth, and now with Al Sparhawk, who's become a good friend of mine from Low, yeah. Charlie Parr, and Trampled by Turtles. They were saying in Bozeman, Duluth is a thing. You know, it's like years ago, if you're from Austin, Texas, or really in the mid-'80s when I really started to play, and I'd get out to Boston and New York and Austin, if you were from Minneapolis, people paid attention to you because it was Husker Du, the Replacements, and Prince. You could do no wrong being a musician from Minneapolis in the mid-1980s.
And it was vibrant. One of the things which you just mentioned, which I think is amazing and awesome, I'm glad you're doing this. I can't tell you how many times I'll go see a blues musician or a band, and it's older person leading, playing guitar on the drums, singing, but they've brought in some younger talent because this does not get handed down easily. And by having them on the stage, getting the time with you, it cuts their chops and it makes just better music overall.
You're absolutely right, Matt, and both the young cats, there's a guy named Ian Hopp on drums and Taylor Shikes on bass. my stuff is not. I tell people when I play with them, or if we're doing one-off shows or whatever, said this is not Tchaikovsky, right? This is not Charlie Parker. This is folk and blues-based rock and roll. But it's all about the groove. It's all about dynamics. And there's a certain way to play it where it's not pedal to the metal all the time. You got to be really sensitive how you play it, when you build, when you take it down. And so these young cats especially are really getting a kick out of it because they've never really been in a band that takes that approach in performance.
Well, isn't what you just described kind of standard for younger musicians? Is that everything is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to learn. Music is a mistress. You've got to learn how to caress that baby, man. You have to learn how to do that, and by having a chance to do it with you, where you're just like, oh no, let's cut the time on this. Let's go a little slower. Take some time with the solo. Let's play this out. I mean, stuff like that that's priceless. You're never going to learn that in any music school.
Yeah, and what I bring, because I've been doing it like forever, is they're very well versed in a variety of styles, man. They can play reggae, jazz, rock and roll, blues, country, but I bring in certain artists they've never heard of, like Nick Drake or John Martin or Merle Haggard, some of the old classic country. So I, on that level, I feel like a mentor. There's one guy in Minneapolis that's been doing it for years, and we need to shout him out. I missed his Christmas show. It's Curtis A. Curtis Olmsted has always had, and especially at his John Lennon tributes at First Avenue that's been going on for now, 44 years. He brings in younger musicians to play with him, and he's always done it at certain gigs. And, of course, you've got all those tried and true. You got the Wayne McFarlanes of the world and all the jazz cats. So it's kind of part of the tradition as you age a musician to pass some of this stuff down.
Mm-hmm. It is exactly what it is. I mean, you look at, and your experience in the industry. You look at guys like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. They might have an upbeat song, but it's never just this constant drive. The songs speak for themselves. And I would say, I go back to Johnny Cash a lot because I think he's one of the most badass rockers that ever existed. Yeah. But if you ever listen to his songs, it's never like an AC/DC it's just a standard blues riff, but he just nails it, and he does it with grit and style, and that's just not something you learn by trying to speed through songs. You got to learn how to caress that baby.
I was just talking to somebody about this, how Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, how they all were influenced by older black musicians in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So in Hank Williams' case, there was a guy, I believe his name was T-Tot, old black guy that would sit on his porch. Hank learned to play some of that early blues with him. Bill Monroe, Johnny Cash. So that's, flip ahead now to Bob Dylan. It's one of the reasons why I love Bob Dylan is there's probably no one that knows more about American music than Bob Dylan. I've been fortunate growing up in the Iron Range, and then especially when I moved to Minneapolis, I had all of these musics available to me. I was like a kid in the candy store in 1978. I was going to the West Bank to hear the blues. Kerner Rain Glover were playing. Willie Murphy was playing. There was a great reggae scene going on over there. Mm-hmm. I would, I lived on Ridgewood Avenue, which is the little street behind Rudolph's Barbecue. So I would go to the Artist Corner, which is 28th and Nicollet, to see Dave Ray on Sunday nights. I'd walk down. I saw Bill Monroe, Doc Watson, and Andre Segovia at Orchestra Hall. And then you could go to Bunkers and hear, all the R&B and all the stuff that coming from the north side of Minneapolis. So I think as a musician myself, I found a sheet, Matt, when my grandfather, Emil Metsa, my dad's dad, was sick, and he was in the hospital on the north side of Virginia, kitty corner from the Lamont Peterson Clinic. Yeah. Which, of course, you've got deep roots in. And it was before I left to Minneapolis, and I wrote 2 pages of the music I wanted to study and learn. And it was like, I just found it the other day, it was like surf music, bebop, classical, blues, acoustic blues, electric blues. I mean, it was a list. It had about 15 or 20 styles of music. It's made my life richer as a musician, but also as a listener and a music fan. So getting back to what you're saying about Duluth, the one thing Duluth and Minneapolis really have in common, I would say probably Austin, Texas as well, is a very sophisticated music audience.
Yes.
That are really willing to listen to whatever you want to play. So that is part of what makes Duluth, and has made Minneapolis a great music scene for years. I mean, I would put Minneapolis, especially the times I grew up in, 80s, early 80s to when I moved out in 2021, I would put the Minneapolis music scene against any other music scene in the country. Mm-hmm. And, it rivals Austin, Texas. Might not have that deep songwriting base that Austin does. But, as I referenced earlier, probably still to this day, you can go out in Minneapolis, although there's not as many clubs, and hear whatever kind of music you're interested in, reggae, blues, bluegrass, singer-songwriter, and hear a different style of music 7 nights a week, which is one of the reasons why I love Minneapolis. You don't have that variety of all of those styles in Duluth, but they've got a lot of incredible musicians up here and an incredible audience.
Well, and I'll say this about Duluth. I mean, I lived in Ames, Iowa, so I was outside of Des Moines. And I do feel sorry for some people where they live, where, it doesn't mean that they don't have some good bands and there aren't some good people. Absolutely. This is not painting with a wide brush. But the depth, if one of your biggest bands is just a cover band, it's right. nothing against it. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's great for the summer festival and stuff. But to have layers of, with gospel and techno and reggae and rock and blues, you get a much, that's what makes a great music scene is you don't know what you're going to get on any given night.
Absolutely. And, up here, there's a lot of 3-band bills, on the weekend.
Yeah.
So, but it's an incredible how much really cool original music is getting played up here. When I was doing my Blackwater Lounge gig, which was, right next to what used to be the old Hotel Duluth, I do like at a gig like that, I do like 60% of my own songs, but I love playing cover songs. I'll play Johnny Cash, I'll play Bill Withers, I'll play Joni Mitchell, and I'll never forget when I started. I was doing Wednesday nights. This young four-top of 20-year-olds came in, and they go, "Do you play any original music?" And I go, "How cool is that in 2022 that you could be playing in a club where you kind of figure that somebody's playing, all the jazz standards," which I dig, but they want to hear original music in a nightclub like that. I loved it. I still do.
Well, and I think that's it. It's twofold because you just also said the other side of it. It's not just it's good musicians and good quality there, but it's good audience too. That kind of appreciates and understands what they've got in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you sent me down to New Orleans and I saw Rory Danger and the Danger Dangers, and you got me to that one, and I'm like, this is just freaking brilliant. And when you get into something like that where it's unexpected, don't get me wrong, I love. I'll go on out to the Old Cop Park, for the annual festival, and they got some bands out there. Some of them are great. Some of them are really talented. They got some experience, and that's great. But when you go into something and it's just nothing you expected, that's when you get floored, and that's when you realize I'm someplace special. Duluth is like that. Minneapolis, St. Paul, those are both like that.
When I started to go down to Austin, Texas, I believe in 84 or 85, I had some good friends down there, originally from Grand Rapids, a fellow named Booker Michael, who married an Austin gal, Edith Booker, and he's still very good friends of mine. And they eventually got into both film and music business. They put out a record of mine on Loud House Records. But we would go club hopping in Austin, and it would blow my mind
Yes.
how great these musicians were. And a lot of these musicians that I was hearing back then actually would go on to become, they get a certain amount of claim around America. I'll never forget the first time I walked in on a Sunday night to the Continental Club, which is on Congress. Now, the Continental's been, Johnny Cash played the Continental in 1958, right? It's been there forever. James McMurtry plays there on Wednesday nights when they're in town. But I walked in there one night and I saw Junior Brown. Are you hip to Junior Brown?
I know the name, man.
Oh, check him out. He plays this. He made his own guitar. It's called a Get Steel. It's a cross between a Fender Telecaster and a pedal steel. And so, and it's just amazing. Amazing guitar player. He sings in this really deep baritone, and he's just a great songwriter. In fact, I'm thinking of a few of his songs. One song he wrote about the party lights when he was leaving the party and got pulled over by the cops because he saw the party lights, But he's got a real tongue-in-cheek, one of his songs is called "She Was Venom and Denim." Just these beautifully written songs with this great musicianship. But you could go to any bar in Austin, Texas, and find somebody whose name you've never heard that would blow your mind. And the other beautiful thing, Matt, that I hope when you now streaming is in a way has ruined it. It's made it better as well. But when you could go down to Austin, Texas, and you could listen to KUT radio, right? That played a lot of great local music. Same thing with WWOZ down in New Orleans. You go down there and they're playing all that great New Orleans music. You'd go down there, especially back then before streaming came on board, and you'd go, you got to come to these cities to hear these great radio stations.
Yeah, it's not the radio station, and the radio station's partially on the plate of that town. And that's what you have to understand. They're there to help promote it, but the town itself breathes and is alive on its own. By the way, if you want to hear more stories like this, once again, Paul Metsa, Our Power Radio Hour here on AM 950, Stars Over the Prairie up in Duluth. Listen to those shows. Now, real quick here, we're going to play Christmas at Molly's, since it is the holiday season. Real quick, we get a story about the song?
In 1990, Southdale, the first open-air mall in America, was celebrating their 35th anniversary. And they were putting out a CD of Minnesota artists of original Christmas music. And they called me up. Somebody had dropped out. They called me on Tuesday morning, said, we need a song by Wednesday at 5. Do you have an original Christmas song? And I'm going, Southdale? I'm freaking Woody Guthrie. What are you calling me for? And so by the end of the conversation, I said, by the way, what does it pay? And they go, $2,500. Yeah. I go, I think I've got one around here somewhere. So I went through my list. I've got song ideas on the back of electrical bills and sickness bags from when I fly places or whatever. A lot of whiskey stained bar napkins. I know you'd find that hard to believe, Matt McNeil, but sure enough, I had spent Christmas at Molly's Bar in Superior, Wisconsin, a couple years before, and I wrote on this napkin, Christmas at Molly's. So I put that at the forefront after I got done with the call. I had a couple of drinks. I started writing at 9. By 9 the next morning, I had a 12-verse song. I called David Carr. I needed one line. So my good friend David Carr gave me the line, and I went into the studio at 1. We got the cassette to him by 5, and it's become one of my most beloved songs. 12-verse song, and really it kind of is the story of Christmas from a sailor who just stumbles into a bar on Christmas in Superior, Wisconsin.
Paul Metsa, not a Southdale guy, much more of a Galleria guy, if you really wanted to. Christmas at Molly's. Let's take us into the break. More with Paul Metsa on a brand new to you edition of the Matt McNeil Show. It is the Matt McNeil Show, brand new to you edition. That song there, Another Man's Change from Paul Metsa. That's from 1994, a Guthrie show he did 30 years ago. They're trying to re-release an album, because it's going to be album cassette. I mean, we released.
I think I'm going to do a compact disc, 100 or 2 LPs. Of course, it'll be streamed. I wouldn't rule out. I'm a big cassette guy.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't rule out doing 100, 200 cassettes of it. But it was a show. It was my farewell show to Minneapolis. When I moved to Minneapolis in '78, I'd seen Leo Kottke at the Guthrie in '72 when I was in high school. He did 2 nights. He did the first set. I was a big Leo Kottke guy, and went down with a couple of friends of mine through a snowstorm. It took us 5 hours to get down there from the Iron Range. And I was so knocked out by the show, the pristine acoustics at the Guthrie. Leo did a first set solo, and then had Billy Peterson and Bill Berg on, a bass player and drummer, that not long after that ended up playing on Blood on the Tracks. But I went down, and they did that in '74. This was '72. And I walked out of there, man, and I said, this is what I want to do for a living. I want to become a professional musician. And my only goal in life was to play the Guthrie Theater. Wow. So when I moved down in 1978, I started rooting around. My first gig was I was a ticket salesman at Dudley Riggs, etc., on 7 Corners, which was fun. Got to see a young Louis Anderson cutting his chops. Hung out with Henny Youngman backstage. He did a show there. Got to know the man, Dudley Riggs, and so not long after I started to play around, I talked to a couple of my guys from the range, from Cats from the Stars, to move down. And in 1983, I believe, the late great Sue McLean called us to open up for Ry Cooder at the Guthrie.
Oh, wow.
Now, we were huge Ry Cooder fans. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a god to us. And back then we were doing Wore Tuxedos that did 3-part kind of 30s and 40s jazz, kind of like Rio Nito did. So it was kind of our model. We did Mills Brothers and Duke Elling and stuff, and then open up for Cooder's band, which included John Hyatt, Jim Keltner, Tim Drummond, Bobby King, Terry Evans. I mean, phenomenal. So that was the first time I stepped foot on the Guthrie stage. I ended up playing there about 7 or 8 more times. I played the Cats broke up in '84. I ended up opening up for Lyle Lovett, Roseanne Cash, J.J. Kill, which was a great hang, Edgar Winter and Leon Russell, and the freaking Neville Brothers, wow. Right? Here's Metsa, white Finlander from the Iron Range with an acoustic guitar, opening up for the world's greatest black band that plays just about every style imaginable. And I was a huge Neville Brothers fan. So got a chance to open that show. And then anyway, so I was getting ready. I was going to move to either Austin, Texas, or Nashville. I wasn't quite sure when. So we did the big farewell show at the Guthrie Theater. I had a 10-piece band. It was the last time my mother saw me play. So literally 2 nights before the show, I said, man, I got a 10-piece band. I'm playing the Guthrie. I got to tape this damn thing. Yeah. So I met a guy at Eli's, and this is very kind of indicative of how my whole career has gone. I met a guy at a bar, at Eli's bar, and this guy, we bonded. He was a Republican. I was a hardcore, lifelong DFLer. But we bonded over martinis, Frank Sinatra, and Bob Dylan. And so we got to be really good friends. So he had some money, and a younger guy, a little younger than me. And he said, Metsa, if you ever need some money, not to buy a new guitar, not to fix your car, let me know. So 2 nights before the Guthrie show, right, it sold out, right, 1,400 seats, whatever it was. And I had the best musicians in town. So I got to go see my guy. So I went down to Eli's bar. It was midnight, and his name was Eric. And I said, I told the bartender, I said, 2 martinis, both doubles. So he came up and we started drinking. And I said, Eric, do you remember when you offered to lend me some money when I really needed it? He goes, yeah. So he had known that I was playing the Guthrie. I said, I want to tape my Guthrie show. I remember it like it was yesterday, man. He pulls his old crinkled, one of those guys that doesn't use his checkbook off, but he takes his old crinkled checkbook out of his pocket, writes me, I think it was, I don't know, $2,500, $3,000 on the spot, and gave it to me. So I set up the recording. So we recorded the show, and I spent the rest of the money that I made on the gig, and I made a little chunk of change, but I spent the rest of it to pay the band and cover the rest of the recording costs. So we had a beautiful show, 2 sets, and but I was out of money. That was the money I was going to move to either Nashville or Austin on. And I did my big last show. I mean, it was all over the papers and the news. And my mother was sick. So my mother ended up passing away May 23rd, a few months later. I went into what is now, I think, a clinical depression. I couldn't play anywhere because I had done my farewell show. So I just kind of stood around. I was living in 1818 LaSalle. This beautiful mansion that was built by Sumner McKnight, and then bought by the guy that started Super Value. Anyway, deep depression, had no money, was getting behind in my rent, lost a beautiful 69 Les Paul guitar to give it to the landlady. December 24th, Christmas Eve day, I got a letter, and I was not looking forward to the first Christmas without my mother, and have no money to really buy presents for any of the family. And it said, Woody Guthrie Publications, New York City. And I opened it up, and it was a letter from Nora Guthrie, Woody's daughter. And it said basically, who the hell are you? Somebody sent me a cassette of your music. I love it. Mm-hmm. So literally, man, the ice melted, the sun came out, and I said, that's it. I'm moving to New York City to meet Nora Guthrie. So I sold the guitar, and a few weeks later, I was on my way to New York City, where I lived for a little over a year and a half.
Merry Christmas indeed, man.
So that record, we're doing an Indiegogo campaign. Yeah, Merry Christmas for sure. So that record, it's got about 10 or 11 songs. I literally don't even have a CD left of it. I finally tracked down the master recordings. So we are kind of remastering it. There's a couple other songs that weren't on the original record called Mississippi Farewell. So my Indiegogo campaign is to remaster it, put it back out with a couple of new songs, and have it out for the 30th anniversary of the record. People can go to paulmetsa.com and track that stuff down.
Yeah, once again, look for the GoFundMe page at paulmetsa.com. You can go
actually Indiegogo, but it's like GoFundMe.
Indiegogo. Indiegogo. So go find the campaign that they're going to be doing there and help let's get this album re-released. It's obviously he's a freaking living legend, my God. And I'll say it, you're a living legend, man. We need to preserve this. We need to get this music out here. If for no other reason is just as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of young people that are getting into this music that need to hear this music because it makes, we become better by listening and standing on the shoulders of the people before us, that sort of thing.
Well, thank you. Well, it's, and it features, John Einwick on piano, who's not with us anymore, Merlin Brunkow, saxophone, who's not with us. So it's a real, when it came out, I think the Twin Cities Reader called it a historic recording. And truthfully now, 30 years later, it is. And it's, if I can say, it's really a damn good record. It was a great night. a lot of love in the audience. And we were, I've been playing, 20 some years in town, playing all the time. So the chops were together. The vibe was there. And some new original songs, including the song that we played called Walking in a Woman's World that I debuted that night. So, and as importantly as anything else, it was the last time my mother ever heard me play.
You talk about going in the Guthrie. Have you ever, you play a lot of bars, you play a lot of halls, you play a lot of places like that. Have you ever walked into a place where the acoustics were so good, you're like, wow, I sound completely different than I've ever sounded before? Well,
no. I mean, it had as pristine of acoustics as anywhere I've ever played. And that when Ralph Rapson was designing that with Sir Tyrone Guthrie, this was 1960 or 61 when they started to design it and build it. They did it all with light, right? To figure out how the sound was going to bounce off the walls. Well, then by the time I started playing there in 82 or 83, my personal explanation of it is those walls, there was a lot of wood around there, were tuned in by some of the greatest musicians in America. So when you stood on that stage, right, you stood on the same place that Miles Davis performed, Howlin' Wolf, Bruce Springsteen, both Patti, Patti Smith and Bruce Springsteen made their debuts there. The Who, the Grateful Dead, Elton John, Sun Ra. You could go on and on about the great American musicians that play there. So not only are you standing in that same spot, but those walls have been tuned in by that music. Mm-hmm. That's part of my take on it.
Mm-hmm. You bring up music. I will bring up one thing. Obviously, the election a few months ago didn't go the way we had hoped it would go. But there's an old adage that comes through that says when we go through times of trial, that we end up getting great arts, and it has a way of hard times creates good arts. I got a feeling we're about to go through and get a lot of really good art because.
Oh, I think it's going to be. That's the upside to the nightmare. Is I think there's going to be an explosion of art. In all facets, music, literature, poetry, film, dance. Plus, we need that in these times, especially. We need that buffer zone from the harsh reality of the darkness that's slowly enveloping us. But we also need, Matt, people like you that are out there on the front lines fighting this every day. Now, one of the big fights I think you're going to see is that, and they've been trying it for years, and now Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's her, one of the things she wants to take down National Public Radio.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the first things they're going to go after. But that's why people like you, myself to a certain degree, AM 950, for sure, wherever the outlet is where you can get a progressive viewpoint, intelligence, music that swings, like I said, poetry, art, and those people that perform that and create it, it's more important than ever. Let me ask you, Matt, you and I have gotten to be good friends. You're on the front lines. What was the day after the election for you?
The first thing I saw was it wasn't, I wasn't falling for any of this narrative of, overwhelming Trump victory. The first thing I looked at was 120 million people did not vote. 120 million people looked at that guy and said, that's not enough to get me to the polls. And that is disappointing. And I think as harsh as this sounds, this is the hope is we're about to do the Andy Dufresne Shawshank Redemption sewer crawl into the water that we are going to have to do we're going to go through some really bad stuff here. But at the end, we're going to get out at the end. And I think America is a product of its own success. Whether it's we've had Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, we've had vaccines, we've had a decent quality of life. People don't think that these things are really in jeopardy, and we're about to learn a lesson that no, these are definitely in jeopardy, and whether or not we'll be able to fix these things later really depends on the American people. But it blows my mind. I mean, you played Farm Aid, man. Willie, John Mellencamp. You guys were fighting this conservatism out in rural America decades and decades ago, and here they still are out there voting for the people that have destroyed their way of life. And you just realize that there is as you want to get rid of national public radio, stuff like that. There is definitely a brainwashing that's going on, but it's like at some point common sense has got to kick in for these people, and yet it just doesn't seem to happen.
I was reading somewhere online, someone kind of with the same kind of politics you and I have was going out to speak to high school or college students, and so they asked online, give me suggestions for what they should talk about. I just shot right back. Ask them if they ever heard about the Second World War. Period. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Do you know who the bad guys were?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and I've been saying it for years, and I'm not the only one that's been saying it, it's the reason why the Republicans and the GOP want to cut off funding for public schools. They want to keep America reading at the level of a 12-year-old.
Yep.
Keep them in the dark.
20% of kids in high school do not know how to read. 20%. Mm-hmm. That is a modern day product of conservative education system, and it's got to be fixed. And it just until we shake this ugliness that is, this vindictive nature of the MAGA right, until we get rid of that, people are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer. Whether or not they'll realize they've done this to themselves, or they'll still find some way to blame Joe Biden, I don't know. But they made their own bed.
Well, it's I've been following. I remember when I was in fifth grade, we had a teacher that really suggested we read the daily newspaper, which I did. I used to read the Metsa Daily News and the Duluth News Tribune. In fact, when I was in sixth grade, I was a paper boy in the morning. We used to pick up the papers at 6 a.m. and I'm going, will they even leave at 12? Would they let a 12-year-old go out in the dark and, of course, in the middle of the winter, on the Iron Range and deliver newspapers? I don't know if they would even let that happen anymore. But I, and of course, spent a lot of time online listening to NPR and MSNBC. And I've had to really pull back from that.
Yeah.
Like, just give me the headlines. I know it's going to get as bad as it's going to get. I mean, I have no qualms. I'm trying to take the approach, you know what? Go for it. Mm-hmm. Try to ruin it all, because it's the only way people are going to see the light. And I hate voting against my own country. Mm-hmm. I'm not, but at this point, it's like, this is your bed. You made it. You're going to sleep in it. Yeah, we're all going to take some, it's going to be a hard 4 years.
Yep.
In my fear, at least 4 years.
Yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, which is why for everyone out there, and Paul, thank you for the very nice words about myself, but, you need to stay on top. I mean, you can turn off the headlines and turn on Paul Metsa and absolutely, get some, understand, because there's a fight that's going to be happening, and it's going to be happening in every realm. So make sure you're listening to Wall of Power Radio Hour, Stars Over the Prairie up in Duluth. Get his books, by the way. My gosh. I mean, he's got a few of them. He's got them out there. Go to the Indiegogo campaign. Help fund the re-release of the Guthrie show from 30 years ago. Help that out. And then and whatever you do, just tell everybody hey, there's a great show you need to be listening to. It's Paul Metsa, one of his shows. And when he comes into town to play, for God's sakes, get up and go and see the show.
I've got one. Can I take a minute and give you some really big news?
Sure.
We have been invited January 23rd and 24th. Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan's masterpiece, came out 50 years ago on about January 21st, on a Tuesday in 1975. I co-wrote a book called Blood in the Tracks with Rick Shevchuk. We have been invited to the Bob Dylan Center in the Woody Guthrie Center on January 23rd to have a book discussion with the three. There's four remaining musicians that played on that record. We will be joined by Kevin Odegaard, Billy Peterson, and Greg Inhofer in a group discussion at the Woody Guthrie Center that's going to be moderated by Steve Jenkin, who's the executive director of the Bob Dylan Center, because they're related. They're run by the same organization. So we're going to be do a book discussion there Friday night, Matt. You should think about coming down.
It's Oklahoma?
Cain's Ballroom. Have you heard of it?
No, yeah, actually, I think I have.
Google it, Cains. It's the legendary ballroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys used to broadcast from in the 40s. So there's going to be a big show that night. We're going to redo the first set we're going to redo Blood on the Tracks, and then the second set's going to be a potpourri of Bob Dylan songs. Here are some of the artists that will be performing at that show at Cain's Ballroom on January 21st, and tickets are available now. The MC will be an actor by the name of Luke Wilson.
Yes.
One of the big guys over from England's playing Elvis Costello.
Okay.
His wife, Diana Krall. Lucinda Williams.
Okay.
And this Finnish-American folk singer from the Iron Range named Paul Metsa.
Have you ever played with Costello before, man?
No, and I have to freaking follow Diana Krall.
Oh, my God.
So I'm starting my vocal exercises. I've cut down on the tobacco. And it's going to be just one of those really gigs of a lifetime. And to be at the, I'm going to be the first Iron Ranger to play at the Bob Dylan Center. That's when I get a kick out of.
January 23rd and 24th, Cain's Ballroom. That's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's coming on up here. We'll have you back to talk stories of that when that does happen. Yeah. Paul Metsa. Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate all the time today, my friend.
Happy holidays to everybody out there in AM 950 Radioland and to you, Matt McNeil.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take a break, come back. It is the Matt McNeil Show, brand new to you edition.